Everybody, how are you? Hope you are having a wonderful Wednesday today. We go live every Wednesday to do a member spotlight where we get to drop in on a Craft Industry Alliance member and learn more about their business. Sometimes we get to see some samples of their work, or we get a little studio tour, or we just find out about their business journey. It's always wonderful and inspiring. And today I'm really excited in a few moments to be welcoming Pam from Bernina. So Pam is going to be talking to us all about products at Bernina and Bernina's education efforts, and also Bernina's sponsorship of our Golden Scissors Awards, which will be given out at a special ceremony at H&H Americas coming up in, honestly, I think it's just 2 weeks, which is sort of crazy. So Pam, if you are here, feel free to hit the plus sign at the bottom of your little Instagram screen and we'll get you live. And in the meantime, I'll just give you a couple highlights of what's happening here at Craft Industry Alliance. So coming up, we have a strategy session for H&H Americas. So many of you know that going to a trade show is a pretty significant expense. It's also a pretty overwhelming experience. And there are, at this show, more than, there's several hundred companies exhibiting. The trade show floor has grown, and which is great and is really big now. And there's lots of people to meet and potential business growth opportunities. But you really do need to think through your strategy, set some goals for yourself, and kind of study the show floor in advance. And that's what we're going to be doing with. So if that sounds good to you, I hope you will register for that. We'll be sending out a second email for that probably tomorrow. So yeah. Hey Pam, how are you?
Hi, Abby. Good. How are you doing?
I'm great. I understand this is either your first or one of your first Instagram lives. Is that right?
It is my very first Instagram Live, so this is great. I'm
Yeah,
glad I could get it all figured out.
you definitely got to figure it out. And I think once
Yeah,
you do one Instagram live, you're like, oh wow, it's really easy
this
and
is pretty
fun.
easy,
And then
right?
you're going to want to do them every week. So, well, welcome. We're really glad to have you. And
Thanks
first,
for
tell
having
us
me.
a little bit about what you do at Bernina, because Bernina is an old company. It's a big
Hmm.
company. It's probably one of, if not the best known brand in sewing. I mean, I think people who don't sew and don't know anything about sewing know that name Bernina. So tell us a little bit about what you do at the company.
Sure. Well, yeah, as you said, and thank you for having us. I know that we're very excited to be part of the Craft Alliance organization, and it's always we need each other to keep this industry going for sure. But I have joined Bernina in the last 5 years, and I am responsible for their entire overlock segment. So I worked actually this morning bright and early at 7 o'clock. I was on the phone with some of my partners that I work with in Switzerland. So I work with the development, the engineers. I work with our marketing team here in the US, our education team, sales team, and I just love surging. I just love everything that we can do with it and share more of what we love to do. And so since sergers kind of have that stigma of being hard and difficult to use and oh my gosh, they use all those threads, how am I going to thread my machine? That kind of takes has people kind of step back a little bit before they actually start to look at them. But then once they do, they're like, wow, I had no idea all the great things you can do with sergers.
Yeah, that's great. And you're right. Sergers are intimidating. So I have a sewing machine. I also have a serger. And it took me many years to get the bravery to buy a serger. And you're right, they're also pretty complicated to thread. They have four cones of thread that kind of hang on the back of them. And then when you thread a domestic sewing machine, there's a little path that you need to follow. And if
Yeah.
you don't follow it, you're not going to be able to sew. Well, same thing as the serger, but you've got
Four
four.
of them. But now they're so much easier, with air threading on the machines. And we've been working with sergers, and I have a couple of samples too we'll show
Right.
in a little bit.
Yeah.
But so many times people think that a serger will only do this kind of stitch,
Sure.
right?
That's the one we're all familiar with. It's
That's
like the edge, it cuts and it sort of stitches over the edge at the same time.
Yeah, and that's kind of the intimidating part too, is that it cuts, right?
Mhm. It
And it's like,
does.
oh my goodness, if I cut it, I can't put it back,
Can't go back.
right?
Right.
But then we have been talking with customers, and because of the different types of sergers that are available out there, there's the only overlockers, which do this kind of stitch, always cutting, always finishing an edge. But then I've been asking customers, how would you like to have a machine that never runs out of bobbin thread?
That
People
sounds
are like,
good.
well, that sounds like it's a pretty cool thing. And with quilters specifically, they think that sergers, and almost everybody again thinks that this is the kind of stitch that a serger does. But when we talk about a serger straight stitch, you can do a straight stitch just like you can on a sewing machine,
Oh.
and you can press your seam allowances open. So now customers are taking a step back and going, well, wait a minute. What did you just tell me? That I can sew without having to change a bobbin thread or not run out of bobbin thread. So
Hmm.
we've been putting a different spin to
Yeah.
it. And it really does help customers kind of come out of their box a little bit and open up in thinking about sergers in a completely different way than what they've done in the past.
So what kind of machine is that you would use for quilting like that?
So this machine, this is the what we call, an industry calls a combo machine.
Okay.
Or you can use a cover or chain stitch machine too. But
Okay.
when I don't like to use that word chain stitch, that's the formation of the stitch.
Mm.
But so many times when you say that, people will say, oh my goodness, it's just going to pull right out. But it's not. I mean, you
Hmm.
have to back out the stitch in order to pull it out. But how many people make a mistake when they want a point to look like this
Yeah.
and they get it and it looks like this,
Mm.
right? So it's not exactly the way you want it to be, but when we do take out the stitch, we can just take out, and I'm going to grab my little scissors here. We just take out two stitches that unlock the stitch.
Okay.
And then from the back side, we just pull this
Ah.
thread,
Ooh,
and
that's a lot easier when you've
it's a
made a
lot
mistake.
easier, and it pulls it out, and it doesn't bruise your fabric either.
Right.
So if you're taking seams apart, you can do it more efficiently. You can also use this for basting if you're
Mm.
wanting to baste something back together. But the other thing is, we have now we have an endless bobbin, but how would you like to make these beautiful half square triangles without using a rotary cutter?
Oh, yeah. I rotary cutters for me, I'm no good at cutting things in a straight line. Never been my strength, I gotta tell you.
Well, so our sergers, we talked earlier about how they cut, right? And we also want to kind of take that stigma away of, oh, it always has to cut. But if we take, and I know there's a million different ways of doing half square triangles,
Yeah.
but if we do it this way
Hmm.
and we sew on the one line with the cutting blade down, it's
Mm.
sewing just like a regular sewing machine
Right, but you're also cutting at the same time.
on the second line.
Oh, I see.
So
Right.
then we pull our cutting blade up and we sew on the other line, and it cuts right through the
Right.
middle.
Oh, I see
And
what
now
you're
you have
saying. So
two
the
lines
first line you do it with the cutting blade up, the second line you do it with
down.
the cutting blade down, and
The
now you've
first
saved
the first side is with it down,
down. Okay, wait.
and
Yeah,
then the second side is with it up.
up. But you've saved the interim step of having to slice them apart.
Correct.
I see.
Correct.
Okay.
And
That's
then, I mean,
cool.
then you can press again. You can press your seam allowance open. You can press it to one side. However you decide, whatever kind of presser you are, you can press
Right.
it in whatever direction you want.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of quilters would benefit from taking like a overlock or serger class
Yeah,
because they may not understand or even be aware of all of the ways that a serger machine might be helpful to them as a quilter, especially if you're somebody who does
absolutely.
a lot of quilting.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look kind of in the background here, I have this quilt hanging. That's
Mm-hmm.
called our Bloom and Grow quilt. So Amanda Murphy and I designed that together. And if we come in a little closer, you'll see that there are some serger stitching that, and I don't know where I'm going here, some serger stitching that's on there, whether it's used decoratively or
Yeah,
it's used functionally. But each one of these different sections
I
are
see.
all different kinds of serger stitching and techniques, which helps everyone understand the
Yeah.
opportunities that there are in being able to piece and put your quilt together. You can do a general quilting on it, especially if you do something more decorative like this jacket,
Oh, yeah.
okay, where you have some decorative stitching that's taking place on there. And then, and you just cut me off whenever you're done.
No, you're good. Keep
I
going. It's so
I
cool.
could just blab on all day about this. But the other great part is, binding. I always talk about binding. It's like the buttonhole on your quilt, where customers typically, or people would typically judge someone on their buttonholes on if they made a garment years ago, right? And the same thing with quilts. They judge them by their binding. And when we use products, we use our sergers, and we use a fusible thread and
Oh,
place this on our machine, now using that traditional overlock stitch that we had,
yeah.
and you sew your bindings on just like you normally would.
Uh-huh.
Okay, with just one corner. Then we take the binding, flip it over. This thread is fusible,
Oh, right.
and you
Just
turn it
like
over
glue.
and press
Yeah.
it, and now magic, you have your binding held in place.
Yeah.
So now you can top stitch it, you can hand stitch it, but you
Sure.
don't have 8,000 clips. Nothing
Clips all
wrong,
over, especially
nothing
if your
wrong with
quilt is
clips,
big.
nothing wrong with pins either. But
Yeah,
they add weight and they're cumbersome.
they
So
are.
this also really helps everyone in that finishing technique. And you can also use some of the other kind of different looking stitch that's called a cover stitch on the machine. And it adds just a little different look to the edge too. So, you know, lots of different options that you can do with your machine.
That is so cool. I love that decorative stitch too. Like it's kind of neat to be able to just see it and not have it be hidden, but to have it be sort of a feature, of the final piece.
Exactly. So one quilt that I made, and I would not consider myself a real quilter, but one quilt that I made, it had kind of a rugged cowboy feel, chambray, checks and things. And so when I put the binding on, I used this stitch in kind of a tan color. So it looked like it was hand stitched or like a little lasso was going around the outside of
Yeah,
the
that's
quilt.
cool. Almost like braiding or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's so neat. That's a really cool feature. So,
Hmm.
and I also think that quilt that's behind you, like if you were to make that either in a class or at home, like you would sort of see all the different ways to use your serger for quilting because you would have all the applicable like use cases for it and
Hmm.
then practice making
Exactly.
blocks and sort of over and over sort of see how it works so it sort of becomes part of your muscle memory and then it's part of your toolbox.
And Exactly. And that's so much of anything that we do. It's that muscle memory. And that's where using to the Bernina sergers, everything is built right in. So you're not having to find a book, and all the tutorials are built right into the machine because of the interface that it has, just like all the other Bernina machines have.
Right, that's great, which helps you out and helps you to remember what the steps are and things like that. That's really cool. So, well, this has been really neat, and I think also emphasizes like the value of our local shops and dealers
Absolutely.
where you
Mhm.
can go in person, you can give things a try, you can take a class from an educator who really understands how to use all the features of the machine. And I always feel like, once you have a new tool, all sorts of new creative possibilities open up for you that you didn't realize were available before.
Exactly. That's what I've always been saying is that we're not trying to change the way people piece and quilt, but we're opening a door for new creative opportunities and
Right.
options that they have out there. And also, does everybody want their quilts to look exactly the same? So it does give different options and ways of embellishing and
Yeah.
also constructing new and
Yeah,
different
that is
things.
really cool. I love that so much. So, thank you for telling us a little bit about it. I thank you also for being a Craft Industry Alliance member. We're really very like proud to have Bernina as part of our organization. And then I also just wanted to touch on the sponsorship to for the Golden Scissors Awards this year. And Bernina is one of our sponsors. We're just so grateful for your sponsorship and support. We have 5 awards that we'll be giving out to recognize excellence in 5 different areas in the crafts industry. And we'll be doing that live on stage on the morning of Wednesday, May 7th in Chicago at H&H Americas. And the sponsorship from Bernina and from our other sponsors helps us to be able to fly the winners in to be able to accept their awards. The majority of them would not otherwise be able to attend the show. And then once they're there, of course, they have the benefit of being at the show and being able to do all the wonderful things that the show offers. So we're just really grateful for that sponsorship. So thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. We're like I said, when we started, we all need each other to keep the industry going and supportive and be able to share that love that we have for the craft that we
Absolutely.
do.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And I feel like, we're in somewhat stressful times for a lot of people. And I think creativity and self-expression is the outlet to de-stress and to feel like you're back in control of what's going on in your little realm, and you're
Exactly.
making something beautiful, you're being productive, you're making something useful as
Your hands
well.
are busy, your mind is
Yes,
busy thinking about what you're creating rather than everything else that's going on around the outside.
absolutely. It's so meditative and good for your mental health. So I think that, creativity is enduring no matter what time we're living in. And
Absolutely.
as an industry, that's what we do. We help people to be able to express themselves that way. And it's just super
Absolutely.
valuable. So
Yeah,
yeah, so
well,
thank you.
with it being Earth Day today, years ago, I
Oh
made
yeah.
I did a raincoat, serged all the pieces together, and it was all different bags that little neighborhood girls would find, or they would go shopping and they'd bring them over to me. So then we made this patchwork raincoat for Earth Day. I mean, it was just so much fun.
That is so cool. I've seen a couple recent projects where people have taken those reusable like canvas tote bags that you get as like swag, or
Yeah,
you get at the grocery store or whatever, and have cut them apart and then sewn them all together to make jackets. I've seen people doing that. That's really cool. I love that idea for Earth Day. So I
yeah.
have a whole huge bag of bags that I could
We
focus on.
I know
That would
we
be
collect
good.
them because we can't throw them away.
No, and they're useful, but I do have way too many of them at this point.
Yeah.
So it would be good to make something out of them. That's a great idea. So, all right, well, this has been
Sure.
fabulous. Go see your local Bernina dealer, your local quilt shop that sells Berninas. Take a class, give one a spin, learn
It's
to use
Surger
your
Month.
machine.
It's Surger Month, so many dealers are doing hands-on programs, make and take
Oh, good.
programs in the store. So check it out.
Yeah, you can use your serger. I've used mine. I love it. It took me a long time to get up the bravery to use it, but it's a great tool. So I agree. Go out and try it out if you've never done it before. And if you do want to venture into sewing clothes, that it's really, really helpful. So beyond quilting, it's helpful for a lot of things. So very good. Thank you so much, Pam, for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
Thank you, Abby.
everybody, for
All
joining
right.
us, and we'll see you soon.
Okay. See you at
All right.
H&H.
Oh, yeah. See you at H&H. Okay,
Okay.
sounds good. All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.